Hi, and welcome to week 5, Understanding Hebrew Poetry. We've reached the halfway point in the class, and I'm excited at what we're accomplishing and look forward to seeing what you come up with not only this week, but through the second half of the course. Now, this week, our title is Understanding Hebrew Poetry. And I want you to analyze parallel structures within Hebrew, apply the interpretive methods utilized in the evaluation of poetry, and to evaluate different psalm categories, identifying elements for each type. Now, in Hebrew poetry, and this is not only in Psalms, but it's in all types of Hebrew poetry, we have different stylistic ideas on how they write poetry. So in the United States in 2018, when people write poetry, they may write haiku, and that has specific kind of rules for how the syllables are put together. You may write with rhyming ideas. You may write using figurative language, and all those would be understood as normal ways to write poetry. Well, back in 1000 BC or 800 BC, there were also rules on how to write poetry if you're writing poetry in Hebrew. Some of them are similar to today, which is figurative language, similes, metaphors, kind of exaggerational, what might be called hyperbolic, or using hyperbole. Those are similar, but they didn't rhyme. That wasn't something that was done in Hebrew. They did have meter, so it was kind of like a song. We're not going to review that. But they also had different types of poetry. And so I want you to learn parallelism and what that means in poetry, and then classifications. So I want you to create a list of types of parallelism in Psalm 22 and explain your decisions. So you should also, in this worksheet, identify 6 instances of figurative language and 2 instances of inter-psalm connections, or connections with other psalms. So you have a worksheet. I'm wanting you to, after you've listened to the lecture and done the reading, identify types. Synonymous, synthetic are 2 of the types that you're going to learn about. And I want you to find examples of that for Psalm 22. Then I want you to identify 6 different instances of figurative language, similes, metaphors, or other types of figurative language. And then 2 instances where this psalm is being discussed or connected to other psalms. A worksheet is provided under course resources, and be sure to include a 2 to 3 paragraph conclusion discussing your findings and reflections and how to apply your findings for the modern church. So I'm looking at that last conclusion as a really important part, or at least grading part of this assignment. And I'm also looking for engagement with the reading and engagement with outside research as you look at both Psalm 22 and types of parallelism. Psalm 22 is, "My God, I cry out by day, but you do not answer. By night, I find no rest." If you look at that first verse, or at least verse 2, it is an example of synonymous parallelism. There's synonymous parallelism between the first line and the second line. I cry out by day, you do not answer by night. So those 2 are synonymous. They might even be antithetical if you want to argue that. But they're saying essentially between the 2 that I cry out by day, you do not answer by night, meaning always. So they're synonymous in that they're trying to tell us that by day, by night, doesn't matter, all 24/7, there's a problem. And so they're parallel. And then we find do not answer is parallel with no rest. So both indicate that God is ignoring a painful cry of the Israelites. Then for assignment 5.2, it's a psalm classification worksheet, and I want you to complete the provided worksheet classifying each psalm type and outline the elements supporting your classification. At a conclusion, summarizing your findings. Now, an A+ level work is not just going to list that this is a kingly psalm or a messianic psalm or whatever Thanksgiving psalm, the type of psalm you use, but to go through and truly explain why it meets the classification for the psalm that you, or the class you picked. So if it's a Thanksgiving psalm, what are the components of a Thanksgiving psalm, and why does this psalm fit each of those components? So it's not a little assignment. Even though it's a worksheet, it's a quite extensive assignment, giving examples and work supporting it. So here is Psalm 3. O Lord, how many are my foes? Many are rising against me. Many are saying of my soul, there is no salvation for him in God. But you, O Lord, are a shield about me, my glory, and the lifter of my head. I cried aloud to the Lord, and he answered me from his holy hill. I lay down and slept. I woke again, for the Lord sustained me. I will not be afraid of many thousands of people who have set themselves against me all around. Arise, O Lord, save me, O my God, for you strike all my enemies on the cheek. You break the teeth of the wicked. Salvation belongs to the Lord. Your blessing be on your people. So how would we identify this psalm? Well, the psalm follows the classic elements of a lament. As outlined in the fee reading, a lament is a psalm where the writer is under extreme suffering, but the writer trusts that God will intervene. The elements of a lament are first an address. Verse 1, cry to the Lord. Second, a complaint. David describes his foes and how bleak his situation seems. Third, it's trust. Despite the situation, David will trust God. Fourth is deliverance. In verse 7a, David cries out for God's help. The assurance details of how God will come to David's aid. And then finally, praising God for his help and deliverance, even though it hasn't occurred yet. So how does knowing the components of a lament help us in our interpretation? And that will be for you guys to come up with. And then finally, our discussion to evaluate modern psalms. In many ways, contemporary Christian worship songs are examples of modern psalms. So how do you think the lyrics of the song you chose resemble a psalm? So I'm wanting you to go and pick one of your favorite modern worship songs, provide us with either a link to the song or to its lyrics, and then in your discussion, I want you to discuss how this song is really a psalm. So after you've understood lament and other different types of psalms, does your song meet a ancient classification for a psalm? Or how do the lyrics contain parallelism? So you might want to provide examples of parallelism or instances of figurative language in your modern song. Or you might classify the type of song, lament, thanksgiving, hymn of praise, wisdom, etc. Be sure to provide the lyrics of your song in the post so others can discuss your findings. So this week we have a lot to do, but hopefully it'll be a bit of fun as well. I always love being able to bring a modern aspect and then compare it back to a biblical type, because it helps us to then grow. We have to learn how to analyze a psalm, and then we're able to take that into the modern world and see if we find a comparison. So put your name on your files of your assignments. We have had Box, which is the grading program, work for the last several weeks, so that's not as important. Feel free to call me or email me with questions. I am available by email this week. On Wednesday, I'm in the Dominican Republic, and on Friday, I'm in Puerto Rico. I'm doing some charter flights, but I will have my at least my cell phone with me, so I can respond to emails as need be. Have a great week. I look forward to seeing what you come up with, and welcome to the second half of the class.